This presentation is about caregiver stress and burnout. Hi, I'm Benjamin Pierce, and I'll be walking you through it today. Family caregiving is huge. 10 million Americans provide unpaid care for a person with Alzheimer's disease or other forms of dementia. In 2007, that translated to 8.4 billion hours of unpaid care valued at $89 billion. What kind of tasks do they do? Well, they do shopping for groceries, preparing meals, providing transportation, helping the person take medications correctly, and follow treatment recommendations for his or her dementia and other medical conditions, managing finances and legal affairs, supervising the person to avoid unsafe activities such as wandering or getting lost, bathing, dressing, feeding, helping the person use the toilet or providing incontinence care, making arrangements for medical care and paid in-home care, assisted living or nursing home care, and managing behavioral symptoms. The age of caregivers really varies from 18 years old all the way to 65, but the predominant age group for providing care to the elderly is 50 to 64. Impact on caregivers' emotional well-being. Well, more than 40% of family and other unpaid caregivers of people with Alzheimer's and other dementias rate the emotional stress of caregiving as high or very high. About 1/3 of family caregivers of people with Alzheimer's and other dementia have symptoms of depression. One study of family care provided for people with dementia in the year before the person's death found that half of the caregivers spent at least 46 hours a week assisting the person. 59% felt that they were on duty 24 hours a day, and many felt that caregiving in this end-of-life period was extremely stressful. The stress of caregiving was so great that 72% of family caregivers said that they experienced some relief when the person passed. Caregiver stress, especially stress related to a person's behavioral symptoms, is associated often with nursing home placement. One study found that a caregiver's stress and depression were just as high after the person was placed in a nursing home as before placement. The impact on caregivers' health? More likely than non-caregivers to report that caregiving made their health worse, to have high levels of stress hormones, reduced immune function, slow wound healing, new hypertension, and new coronary heart disease, and to die in the following year after their spouse passed. So, caregiver stress test. Which of the following are seldom true, sometimes true, often true, or usually true for you? I find I can't get enough sleep. I don't have enough time for myself. I don't have time to be with other family members besides the person I care for. I feel guilty about my situation. I don't get out much anymore. I have conflicts with the person I care for. I have conflicts with other family members. I cry often. I worry about having enough money to make ends meet. I don't feel I have enough knowledge or experience to give the care as well as I'd like or as safely as I like. My own health is not that good. My care receiver needs constant supervision, and I rarely get away from my caregiving situation. So here are the 10 signs of caregiver stress. Denial. Denial about the disease and its effect on the person. Might translate, I know mom will get better, but they must have made a mistake. Or she's just having a bad week or month. Number 2, anger. At the person with dementia or others. Translation, if he asks me one more time that same question, I'm going to scream. Number 3, withdrawing socially. You no longer want to stay in touch with your friends or participate in activities that you once enjoyed. Translation, I don't care about getting together with my neighbors anymore. Number 4, depression. You feel sad and hopeless much of the time. Translation, I just don't care anymore. Number 5, exhaustion. You barely have the energy to complete your daily tasks. Translation, I just don't have the energy to do anything anymore. Number 6, anxiety. Anxiety about facing another day and what the future holds. I'm worried about what will happen when I can no longer provide care. Number 7, sleeplessness. You wake up in the middle of the night or have nightmares and stressful dreams. Translation, I rarely sleep through the night listening to hear if Dad is out of bed. Number 8, emotional reactions. You cry at minor upsets. You are often irritable. I cried when I broke a favorite dish, and then I yelled at my father. 9, lack of concentration. You have trouble focusing, and you find it difficult to complete tasks. I used to do the daily crossword. Now I'm lucky if I can concentrate enough to solve 1/4 of it. Number 10, health problems. You may lose or gain weight, get sick more often, getting the colds or the flu, minor things, or you may develop chronic health problems, backaches, high blood pressure, etc. Translation, since spring, I've had a cold and I just can't seem to shake it. So risk factors. Recent studies show that up to 25% of American families are caring for an aging family member. Caregiving is a risk factor for a variety of illnesses. Interleukin, the IL-6 immune system molecule, is 4 times lower in individuals caring for a spouse with dementia. It's also linked to increased risk of cardiovascular disease, osteoporosis, adult onset diabetes. Let's break down the risk factors, starting with physical. Feelings of exhaustion and lack of control in their lives, ongoing and constant fatigue, change in eating habits, increased use of stimulants and alcohol. All these effects tend to accumulate over time. Now the emotional factors. Feelings of loneliness and depression can persist for 3 years after a spouse has passed. Social isolation and loss of support system. Emerge from caregiving responsibilities with fewer social and professional contacts because you were totally dedicated to the caregiving tasks. Dealing with your own illness as well as can contribute to additional stress. Next is guilt. Feelings of guilt can be either self-inflicted or imposed upon us by others. When guilt is warranted, it spurs us to do better. But if it's unwarranted, it causes anxiety and hinders decision-making. There's also a frustration of constantly trying to fix things that go wrong and finding that the fixes never seem to last. People are rarely prepared to accept caregiving responsibilities thrust upon them by aging parents. Uninformed siblings sometimes only highlight primary caregiver shortcomings, and also the stress of caregiving can expose already weak areas in a long-term relationship. Here's some tips on reducing stress. Okay, let's start with the stress sources of physical demands. Creating a safe physical environment, preventing falls, providing first aid and medical assistance as possible, bathing a care recipient, assisting with oral hygiene, dressing a care recipient, assisting with toileting needs, feeding or assistance with eating nutritional needs, meal planning and preparation, lifting, turning, transferring a care recipient, routine housework, managing of behavior with the care recipient who have cognitive impairment, which can be really horrific, other physical challenges. Here's some suggested coping tips. Learn how to properly care for your family member. Get training so you know how to perform the needed skills, which will make your work easier and safer. The best way to get training is to bring in a home health care person and watch them as they go through a whole day of transferring and feeding. There's a lot of tricks that you can learn from just observing a hired professional caregiver. Practice healthy habits, including a balanced diet, regular exercise. Try to get enough sleep and visits to the doctor. Don't neglect your own doctor visits. When needed, get help with physical tasks from other care providers, neighbors, and other sources of help. Work with your care recipient to get them as independent as possible. Even if it takes longer for them to get dressed by themselves, the more care that you provide them, the more dependent upon them that they will become. Work to keep your care recipient as independent as possible to reduce your stress and maintain dignity. That means lay their clothes out in reverse order and have them start and complete tasks themselves. Utilize adaptive or assistive equipment with specific needs. Stress sources for financial demands. Well, you worry about the cost of medical care and treatment, the cost of adaptive or assistive equipment that's needed, the cost of hired help, lost income, reduced work hours, loss of employee benefits, management of financial concerns for care recipients, planning for long-term care financial needs. Suggested coping tips: evaluate and utilize programs that assist with medical and treatment costs as they relate to family caregiving. Many of these programs are online, and many of them are sponsored by individual state health departments. Identify programs that provide assistive technology at reduced fees or on loan. Discuss financial needs and impacts with other family members. Plan ahead for medical costs and treatment needs. You'd be surprised how much equipment, durable medical equipment especially, is covered by Medicare. Work with financial planning specialists as needed. Sources of stress for emotional demands. You have a sense of feeling alone, unaided, or unappreciated, a sense of isolation and frustration, insufficient time for yourself or your personal activities, fatigue and emotional irritability, anger or frustration at perceived unfairness of a situation, discouragement or personal depression, loss of opportunities, feeling overburdened with demands from care recipient or others, and just a general lack of control of your circumstances. Suggested coping tips: find someone you trust and talk about your feelings or frustrations with them. Be realistic about the demands of caregiving and turn to others for help. Set aside time for self-care and for personal renewal. Take advantage of respite care services and get a break for a few hours or even a couple of days to recharge your battery. Join caregiver support groups so you can share feelings and learn about resources and reduce stress by learning how other people have coped with the similar circumstances. Get help from others. Relationship challenges also are stress sources. Feeling overburdened by caregiver responsibilities, so you become resentful often of the care recipient. Conflict with care recipient about care demands or plans. Disagreement with family members about care responsibilities or plans. It's often a good idea to get together with a planner who can create a plan for when things will occur. At what state will you consider stopping your ability to drive? At what state will you consider home health? At what condition will you consider assisted living? And get your loved one to agree to those while they're cognitively alert, and get it documented so that you can show it to them when those circumstances emerge. There's also difficulties with spouse and other care demands, insufficient time and energy for other family members, criticism or lack of help from family members relating to caregiving, limited communication about the needs. Suggested coping tips: focus on positive experiences with the care recipient, such as sharing memories or doing a life story. Involve the care recipient as much as possible in the discussion of guidelines for care. Express needs and issues clearly to family members related to caregiving responsibilities. Take time for other family relationships. Participate in a support network for caregivers and get respite care. Have each family member participate in caregiving and express appreciation for each other. Here's some solutions you might want to consider. It's important to learn to distinguish between legitimate guilt that motivates us from unwarranted guilt that leaves us dispirited. Resist the temptation to allow old conflicts to create guilt today. Don't try to be a martyr. Set realistic expectation. Nobody expects you to do anything that is not unreasonable. Define for your caregiver, care receiver, what an emergency is and what, more importantly, what emergency is not. Often care receivers will pester their family members with a crisis du jour in order to get some attention that will distract them from their daily routine. Define what is an emergency and what can wait. What is practical and necessary and reasonable. Nobody expects you to do anything more than that. And if you're feeling guilty, write down what makes you feel guilty and examine the underlying reasons. Is there even a solution within your power? There's no sense feeling guilty over something that you have no power to control. Some guilt comes from thinking you have more influence than you really do. Compartmentalize large problems into small ones, making them more manageable. Tackling a few problems can give you a sense of accomplishment and build your self-confidence. Take care of yourself first. Always strive for balance. Consider lowering your expectations of yourself. Better to say no than attempt the impossible. Maintain your personal fitness, good nutrition, protect your health. You're going to need it now more than ever. Try to maintain your social contacts because those people can help provide you sympathy and support that you need to get you through. Acknowledge your emotions and find an outlet for them. Asking for help does not mean you have to relinquish control. Try not to be disappointed when expectations are not met and gratitude is not expressed. When frustrated, leave the room or take a brisk walk to relieve your stress. Talk to people. We acquire courage and support from friends who stand by us. Keep a positive attitude. People who become depressed are more likely to develop their own health problems. Breaks energize. Take time off to recharge. Better to be a super healthy hero than a burned out superhero. Don't allow other people to control your stress level. Guard against them. Pick your battles. Choose issues to deal with and confront that are relating to critical health and safety. Try to present people with choices rather than ultimatums. Postpone confrontations. Sometimes issues have a way of resolving themselves. Focus on the process, not on a goal. Don't personalize. Learn more about the disease and its effects. That will empower you to recognize the symptoms as they emerge. Exercise, exercise, exercise. I feel my body has gotten totally out of shape, so I got my doctor's permission to join a fitness club and start exercising. I decided to take an aerobics class for seniors. I bent, twisted, jumped up and down, and perspired for an hour. But by the time I got my leotards on, the class was over. What? Me exercise? So the doctor says, what fits your busy schedule better? Exercising 1 hour a day or being dead 24 hours a day? You are no good to anyone if you're not feeling well yourself. There's nothing like exercise to build your personal energy. Caregiver relief. Ask other siblings to help. Rotate tasks. Apply financial resources before the caregiver begins to weaken. Once the caregiver begins to weaken, then you might have 2 people to care for. Apply financial resources while she can still gain benefit from a social setting. People often get better once they go into assisted living. When they're in a social setting and they've gotten regular meals and their medications are delivered in accordance with the doctor's orders, they often get better and have a better quality of life. And once the funds are exhausted, well, Medicaid is available in most nursing homes. Consider adult daycare so that your loved one can get out of the house and into an adult setting. Also consider senior centers. Every town has a senior center, and they have programs that go on regularly that are of interest to seniors. Respite care and statewide respite care programs are available and often funded by many states. This is a good way to get them introduced to assisted living so they don't fear it and could see themselves one day living there themselves. Information brings control. Here's a few websites that I put up that provide some excellent information on how to learn more about being a great caregiver. Okay, here's the Serenity poem. Give us the grace to accept with serenity the things that cannot be changed, and the courage to accept the things that should be changed, and the wisdom to distinguish one from the other. Okay, if you haven't heard of that one before, try this one. Senility poem. Grant me the senility to forget the people I never liked anyway, the good fortune to run into the ones that I do, and the eyesight to tell the difference. Best wishes to you, and good day.